Good morning, Minesh here, and I'm so excited to see you because today is going to be a fantastic class which will change the way you look at sales and overcoming objections. As you know, my name is Minesh Baxi. I've been a speaker, author, business coach for over 25 years. I published 12 different books. And one of the challenges I always had was sales and closing. And one of my mentors said, Minesh, you are a terrible closer. So it's like, what is the problem in sales? And generally, it comes down to us not being able to overcome objections. How many of you feel objections become a real challenge in overcoming and getting people to buy? And it's like I went to different courses, programs, and everywhere. And what I found was they were all gimmicky tactics. And the tactics by themselves don't work. Because if you don't understand the context and if you don't fully grasp how to actually understand the person behind the objection, what they're going through, your objections are going to come across not the best way you want. And typically, people have three different responses. The first response is freeze. It's like, I don't know what to do. I didn't expect this objection, gone. The second one is called fight, which unfortunately I've done too many times. So like, how come you have to think about it? How come? And it becomes a little aggressive tone. And the third one is flight. It's like, boom, I'm gone, right? I don't know how to handle objections. I'm not going to stick around here. And I will just say bye and I'm done. None of those three help. Freeze doesn't help. Fight doesn't help. Flight doesn't help. The first thing you have to understand is that you personally have to manage your own emotions when these things are happening. Because the biggest challenge in sales is not technique, it's not approaching people. The biggest challenge is not being able to handle our own emotions when we are approaching people and if they respond that we don't agree with. That is the biggest challenge in sales. So, why do people say, I don't like selling? It's not about they don't like selling. It's that don't like the emotions they experience and don't know how to manage those emotions. So how many of you understand what I'm talking about, right? That is the reason why people struggle in sales. So instead of looking for techniques, tips, scripts, the best thing you can do in sales is to understand your own way of understanding your emotions, managing them, and also to understand what the other person is going through because sales is a challenge because of people not being able to handle emotions. That's the number one thing. So, what we will do today is understand what objections are, what they really are psychologically speaking behind the scenes. So, techniques and tactics are helpful, but you don't need them as badly because you understand what the person is going through. So, how many of you agree that that's a much easier way to handle objections than trying to memorize stuff over and over and over, right? Because there are people who have like 1,000 ways to close. It's like, who wants to remember 1,000 ways to close? I don't, right? It's like, why do I have to be different every time? No, you don't have to be. If you understand the psychology and you have a template on how to handle it. So I'm really excited about sharing this with you. So let's start with this. So it says overcome hidden objections, the hidden psychology behind objections and delayed decisions. So why people stop? So most people do not struggle making small decisions. They struggle making decisions which have impact in their life. But the struggle is basically due to uncertainty, emotional risk, financial consequences, identity consequences. We'll go into detail on this one. So instead of deciding, they delay, they avoid, they hide behind objections. The part that you and I want to remember is we all want more stuff in our life, better things in our life, better situations in our life. And when somebody is presenting, as long as it's a good fit, we want to take action, but we ourselves are struggling. So, what does this cost the buyer? It costs them missed opportunities, staying stuck, delayed progress, continued pain. Because good salespeople, like if you're selling a gym membership, you know what you're selling is going to help people if they consistently do what is required. But because of objections in the brain that people have, they won't be taking action and they will be missing the opportunities as well. Okay. So, what does this cost the salesperson? Lost income, endless follow up, inconsistent production, and frustration. So, that is what it is going to cost the salesperson. So, how much money are you leaving on the table by not learning how to overcome objections? So, the truth about objections is very simple, they are not logical. They are emotional protection mechanisms. So people rarely say, I'm afraid this won't work for me. Instead, what do they say? I need to think about it. Now is not a good time for me. I need more information. Let me wait. I need to talk to my spouse. So let me explain one thing before we go further. There are clearly people who are interested in what you have to offer, and there are people who are not. And you and I need to figure that out very quickly. Some people are just being nice, or they don't know how to say no, and they really haven't come to the conclusion that this is something they want. And because they haven't come to the conclusion they want, they're going to throw smoke screens. And that's one of the things as objections you have to figure out is like, is this really a valid objection? If it is a valid objection, definitely address it. Or are they just throwing smoke screen at you? Because the most important part is, do they see the need for what you offer? Because if they don't see the need for what you offer, nothing you can do to overcome objections. Why? Because they don't see the need. If they don't see the need, they're not going to take any action. So that's the first part you have to become clear is during the sales process, you must pay attention to, is this person serious or not serious? Because too many people will not tell you up front that they're not serious and they'll continue the conversation. So you got to not waste your time. You want to figure out, okay, I need to figure out here very quickly, is this person serious or not serious? If they're not serious, then understand, is there a way that you can help them understand the need? If you can, just walk away. Why are you wasting your time? Because it's just not going to work out, and no amount of techniques on objection handling will help you. Let's talk about the 4 trust gaps. So every objection usually falls into one of 4 categories. Now, the first one is what I just addressed a little bit. They don't fully see the problem. So they don't really see the need for solving the problem at a deeper level. I don't think this is urgent enough. Pain is not strong enough yet. And this is the first one you should figure out as quickly as possible. Because if you go towards objection handling without handling this first, why they need it, how urgently they need it, you'll not be able to actually help them see the value of what you offer. The second one is they don't fully trust you. Can I really trust this person? Trust has not been earned emotionally yet. The third is they don't trust the process. So whatever system you are teaching them, whatever they feel will be used to help, they don't trust the process. Will this actually work? And they fear disappointment. And the last, they don't trust themselves. What if I fail again? This is the deepest objection where identifying uncertainty will stop them from taking action. The question in their brain quite often is, what if this works for other people but not for me? This is the hidden fear behind many objections. People secretly wonder, what if I can't follow through? What if I'm not disciplined enough? What if I fail again? What if I disappoint myself? Most hesitation is self-doubt, not lack of information. So people buy emotionally, then justify logically. Most people are not looking for more features, more facts, more pressure. What they're looking for is certainty, safety, confidence, and clarity. It is the emotional need you have to satisfy without wondering about all the logical data that you have to provide. So the real skill is great salespeople don't push harder. They diagnose uncertainty better. So like a doctor, you want to be figuring out, where is this objection coming from? We gave you the 4 scenarios already. You have to be able to understand as quickly as possible. And you may have to use questions back and forth in order to understand that. See, weak salespeople here, I need to think about it. Strong communicators here, fear, confusion, hesitation, lack of trust, and identity uncertainty. What does identity uncertainty mean? So let me help you understand. Sorry about that. Let me drink something here. So if somebody has been saying to themselves, I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat, they have created an identity in them, fat. So guess what happens? When somebody shows up trying to help them lose weight, trying to help them in get a better shape, guess what happens? Their identity says, hey, I am fat. This will not change. So you need to understand the identity you are speaking to. So somebody says, I've never been able to save money. That is the identity. Their identity is I'm always in debt. That's an identity. I cannot sell. That's an identity. So you and I need to pay attention to the identity you are speaking to, because if they have brainwashed themselves, if their self-talk is all about I can't sell, and then you're trying to tell them how to close, they can't hear it easily enough. So you should be able to address their uncertainty feeling about a change in identity. So this is something very, very important. Over a time period, we have built an identity that either supports the change we are looking for or does not support the change we are looking for. And changing the identity takes effort, emotional energy, and consistent action on a consistent basis over and over and over. So let's talk about the objection framework that you can use. I call it the calm objection framework. So great objection handling feels calm. You have understood what people are going through. You're able to relax yourself, which is not always easy. I must admit that. But if you can do this over and over and over again, you find ways to handle objection and overcome them with ease. The first one is empathize. This is where you don't argue, debate, and fight with the objection. If somebody says, hey, I don't think this will work for me, I completely understand. I can understand why you would say that. Suddenly they are relaxing. It's not that you are agreeing that that's the problem and you should agree that that is it, but you're agreeing that you understand what they're going through. That's all you're doing. You're not trying to fight, debate with them. I completely understand. The second step is normalize. A lot of people initially feel that way. So somebody might be like, hey, I'm not sure joining the gym is for me. Hey, I totally understand that. Most people who haven't had membership to gym in a long time initially feel that way. You are validating their emotion. You are validating what they are saying because people need to be validated. That's what human beings want. Then you want to isolate and reveal. What does that really mean? So if somebody says, I need to, so let's say I don't have the money. So you must be aware that they themselves say they don't have the money. But is that the real objection? You want to understand that. So you want to isolate it, identify. Is that the real objection? Because if it is not the real objection, then you will try to overcome the objection, except you will fail. So every time somebody says, yeah, I'm interested, but if you don't understand what the real objection is, you're going to be on a wild goose chase trying to answer an objection. That is not the real objection. So I would say, hey, if money was not an issue, is there any reason you would not get started today? If they say, yeah, but I need to talk to my spouse. Okay. So money was not the objection you should be handling. You have to figure out what that real objection is, because the real objection is what you have to overcome. So make sure this is the only objection they have. And then usually when someone says that, it's one of two things. So I would say, hey, when people say I don't have the money, usually it comes down to one of these two things. And I'll explain that in a minute here. The next one is reconnect. They came to you for a solution. They are looking for a solution. They have a problem. So earlier you mentioned that you're not in good shape, your knees are hurting, and you're not working out for a while. So you want to reconnect to what they said before, the reason for this conversation. And then reframe it in a way that they understand, yeah, I need to take action. No, that's pretty much what the reframe is about, right? It's like, hey, if I stay where I'm at, it's not going to improve. If I don't save money, I can't retire. If I don't have insurance, my family will suffer. If I don't create additional source of income, I can't meet my bills. I'll never get out of debt. Okay. If it is exercise as an example, if I don't start exercising on a consistent basis, I will have a problem. So you want to reframe it so that they understand the sense of urgency required to solve the problem. And then you go to trial close. If you solve that concern, would you feel comfortable moving forward, right? If they say yes, great. Sometimes you say on a scale of 0 to 10, hey, 0 being this makes no sense, I have no interest in doing anything, and 10 means, hey, let's get started. Where are you at? They might say 7. It's great. Why do you say 7, not 2? Why do you say 7, not 10? What will it take for you to be 10? So you want to understand what's going on in their mind so you can actually get them to take action. Because at the end, unless you get the prospect to take action, there is nothing happening. Like there is nothing happening because people can have good intentions, they can watch YouTube videos, they can listen to stuff, but if they don't take action, their life does not change. And as a salesperson, you must help them take action. And in action, in most cases, sign an agreement, pay the money, show up at a certain place, whatever else it is. Okay. So let's give you some examples here which will be helpful. So the first example here is for business coaching. The prospect says, I need to think about it. Weak person would be fighting. What's holding you back? Two-way creates pressure. Strong. Totally understandable. Usually when business owners hesitate here, it's normally one of two things. Either they're not fully convinced this strategy will truly produce results for their business, or deep down they're wondering whether they will consistently execute well enough to get the result, which feels closer to what you are thinking. So now put yourself in the shoes of the prospect. If I come from a place of empathy, hey, I understand what you're going through, and I also say, hey, based on my experience, I've seen people struggle with this decision, and these are the places that they struggle with. Either they don't think this will work for them because this is a strategy that doesn't seem to provide value, or they cannot do the work that is required to get the result. And you and I need to be aware of that. Let's talk about investing in insurance. Somebody says, hey, I want to wait. I understand completely. Usually, when families hesitate, here is one of two concerns. Either they are unsure whether this strategy truly protects their long-term future that they want, or they're worried they may not consistently stay committed, which means pay the payment premiums or put in the investments financially long enough to fully benefit from it, which feels closer to your concern, right? Now, again, sometimes that may not be the case, but they will tell you, hey, it's not any of those two, it is this one. Then you start paying attention to what they're saying, not just trying to bulldoze them. Here is if you are recruiting and building a team, the prospect says, I'm not sure this is for me. Totally understandable. Usually, when someone says that, it's one of two things. Either they are unsure whether this business can realistically work for someone in their situation, or they're questioning whether they personally can develop the confidence and consistency to succeed. Which one feels closer? Let's go to the next one, fitness coaching. We talked about that. Prospect says, I've tried programs before. The response, I completely understand. Usually when someone says that, it's one of two concerns. Either they're unsure whether this program is truly different from what they've tried before, or they're afraid they'll lose consistency again and end up disappointed. Which one feels closer to what you're feeling, right? You're being very engaging. Marketing agency, prospect says, I need to think about it. Totally understandable. Usually when business owners hesitate here, it's one of two things. Either they're not yet fully convinced the marketing will produce enough ROI, or they're worried they won't have the time, systems, or follow-up process to properly capitalize on the leads, which feels closer. So this is why it lowers the resistance. You narrowed the uncertainty. You surfaced the hidden emotion, so now it is up in front. You demonstrated experience and expertise. You are showing, I've seen this before. I know what I'm talking about. And you made the invisible visible. So experienced advisors recognize patterns. People feel safer when they feel understood. When you name what someone is secretly feeling, resistance drops and trust rises. Which is what, when you can engage with the self-talk that the other person is experiencing, then they can connect with you at a deeper level. So instead of trying to impose what you have in your mind, try to understand what their own self-talk is. Hey, their self-talk might be, I like this, but I'm not sure I can follow through. Great. So if you were able to create the invisible to visible, which means the fear that they have, they feel more safe with you because now you've been able to address what they actually are experiencing. See, the hidden battle always, every decision is between desire and fear. Desire means I want a better future. But the fear is, what if I fail again? And that's where you have to learn to master communicating with people in order to help them overcome objections. Now, does it mean techniques and tactics don't work? They do. But if you are forgetting that they have a desire to improve the situation, but a fear is holding them back, and your job is to help them create certainty and overcome the fear, you will fail to close, you'll fail to help them in a situation that's helpful for them. Certainty creates action. So pressure creates resistance. Like, hey, sign up now. Can you do it today? Those are all external pressure. But when you create certainty in their brain, now it creates movement, which is action. So people move forward when they feel safe. They feel understood. They trust the process. They trust you and trust themselves. So sales is nothing but helping people feel safe with you, feeling understood with you, and they can see the process that you are talking about can work. And they also can see that you are somebody that they can trust to help them. And that's where they can trust themselves to also follow because your support is there. Because everybody wants to improve their life. They want to be in better shape, have more money, have better relationships, and everything else. But as a salesperson, if we cannot help them go through these mental checklists, they will ask themselves, do I feel safe here? Does this person really understand me? Is there a process that I can feel can really get the results? And is this person reliable and trustworthy enough? And last, can I trust myself to be consistent in following and getting the results that I need? Those are the main things that people need. So watch for signals. Resistance appears before the objections. Watch for delayed responses. Watch for lower energy. Watch for vagueness, hesitation, emotional withdrawal. The objection is usually the symptom, not the real issue. So if you're paying attention to their body language, their way of communicating, you're starting to see their energy shift and they are going towards objection, which means they're not fully convinced. So the powerful word tracks you can use to lower the resistance. That makes complete sense. Usually when someone says that, it's one of two things. The self-doubt, obviously, sometimes people are less worried about the strategy and more worried whether they can consistently execute. You can reframe it. The real risk may actually be staying in the same situation. What if 90 days from now, your health doesn't improve? What if 90 days from now, you have no more money in the bank? What if 5 years from now, you can't retire as you want to retire? So you can use the reframe to remind them, hey, you told me this is what is important for you. Are you really seeing the sense of urgency you need? And then trial close on a scale of 0 to 10 works really, really well. So great objection handling feels like leadership. Leadership means you understand them, you have a direction that you're taking people into, and you have very specific action to point out. So weak salespeople create pressure. They push harder when they hear resistance and lose trust and in the process. But strong communicators, they uncover the fear. They reduce uncertainty. They create clarity. They build confidence. And that's what helps people feel empowered that they can make decisions. So let's talk about a few objections that you might commonly see. Okay, and let's find that out. So for each one, ask, is the real issue? They don't see the problem. Pain is not strong enough yet to motivate action. They don't trust me. Emotional trust has not been fully established. They don't trust the process. They fear disappointment and past failures. They don't trust themselves. Identity uncertainty, the deepest hidden objection that is there for them. So if you understand what is the real issue, it makes your job a lot easier to help people overcome the challenges they are going through from the desire they have to achieve something and the fear that is stopping them. Objection is just their voicing the fear, and you and I as salespeople understanding that. So this is a great program. We do have the recording in school community. So if you need more information, you can get in touch with me, reply here. And what will really happen is you are able to use this over and over in different circumstances in any sales situation, and you understand the desire the person has, the fears they have, you understand the fear, and you're answering the fears in a format that comes across helpful to them, not pushy to them. They feel safe, they feel understood, they feel that they can trust the process, they can feel that they trust you, and eventually they trust themselves to do what is necessary to get the results you want. So as you know, this is part of the Millionaires in Training Sales Mastery. And this was session 4 because we covered the 3 sessions before a lot of details about the format of selling that you can definitely benefit from. So take advantage of the free school community, join us, and we look forward to you succeeding and achieving your goals.